It was a cold February night in New Hampshire. The roads were covered in snow, the landscape was quiet, and along Route 112, in the town of Haverhill, a black Saturn sedan had just gone off the road. To anyone passing by, it looked like a relatively ordinary winter accident. But there was something unusual about it. The driver was gone. Inside the vehicle, there was no person waiting for help, no explanation for where she had gone, and no clear indication of where she was headed next. The driver was 21-year-old Maura Murray. She had been studying nursing at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. She was an avid runner. She enjoyed hiking in the White Mountains, and on February 9, 2004, she had left Massachusetts and traveled toward New Hampshire without telling others about the trip. That night, Maura disappeared, and despite years of searching, investigation, and renewed attention, she has never been found. More than 2 decades later, one question still hangs over the snow-covered road. What happened to Maura Murray after her car came to a stop? This is the story of a disappearance that began with a vehicle in the snow and ended with one of America's most enduring missing person mysteries. Before Maura Murray became the subject of a missing person investigation, she was simply a young woman building a future. She was 21 years old. At the time of her disappearance, she was studying nursing at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. The FBI's current missing person profile describes Maura as approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighing between 120 and 125 pounds, with light brown hair and green-blue eyes. The FBI also notes that she had dimples on both cheeks and dental fillings or crowns that could help with identification. But statistics don't tell us who someone was. Maura was also an athlete. She had attended the United States Military Academy at West Point before attending UMass Amherst. She was an avid runner, and she enjoyed hiking in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Those details matter because New Hampshire was not completely unfamiliar territory to her. She had an interest in the outdoors. She knew the region. But knowing a place and disappearing in it are two very different things. And on February 9, 2004, something changed. Monday, February 9, began like an ordinary weekday. But before the day was over, Maura would leave Massachusetts, and she would never return. According to the FBI, Maura had been studying at the University of Massachusetts Amherst before leaving campus that day. The FBI also states that she did not tell others about her pending trip to New Hampshire. The distance was roughly 2.5 hours. Why was she going there? That question has remained an important part of the case, and it is important to separate what investigators know from what people have guessed. We know Maura traveled toward New Hampshire. We know she was later involved in a crash on Route 112. We know she disappeared. But the precise reason for her trip has never been publicly established as a confirmed fact. That uncertainty would become one of the central features of the investigation. Earlier that day, Maura was captured on surveillance footage at an ATM. The FBI specifically identifies this as her last known surveillance appearance before the crash. She was wearing a dark jacket and jeans. Then she continued her journey. At some point, she left the university area and headed north. The exact reasons behind the trip remained unclear. And because Maura would soon disappear, every known movement from that day would become important. Investigators would have to reconstruct a timeline from fragments. A vehicle, a surveillance image, a road, witness observations, and the final location where Maura was known to have been. But at this point, nobody knew that they were looking at the beginning of a disappearance. They were simply pieces of an ordinary day that would later become evidence. By approximately 7:30 that evening, Maura's black Saturn sedan traveled off Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. The roads were snow-covered. The vehicle became stuck, and then something happened that would define the entire case. Maura was no longer there when police arrived. Imagine that scene. A winter road, a damaged vehicle, snow surrounding the area, and an empty driver's seat. The person who had been driving the car was simply gone. For investigators, this immediately created a difficult question. Where could she have gone in such a short period of time? The answer would depend on understanding exactly what happened between the crash and the arrival of law enforcement. And that period of time remains one of the most important gaps in the case. The abandoned Saturn became the physical center of the investigation. The car was there. Maura was not. The FBI's official case description confirms that when police arrived at the crash scene, Maura was absent. It also confirms that she has not been seen or heard from since. That simple fact is what makes this case so difficult. There is a known location where Maura was last associated with a vehicle, but there is no confirmed location where she went afterward. There is no confirmed destination. There is no confirmed later sighting. And there is no confirmed evidence establishing what happened to her after she left the crash scene. The investigation therefore became a search for a missing person whose last known location was connected to a rural winter road. Once Maura was recognized as missing and endangered, the search expanded. The New Hampshire State Police and other agencies became involved. The case would eventually involve local, state, and federal law enforcement. The New Hampshire Supreme Court later described Maura's disappearance as the subject of investigation by the New Hampshire State Police, Special Investigation Unit, and other officials. Search efforts focused on the area surrounding the crash and other locations investigators considered relevant. The environment itself presented a challenge. This was northern New Hampshire in winter. Snow covered the ground. Roads stretched through wooded terrain. Visibility could change quickly. And every hour that passed made the search more difficult. For Maura's family, the search was not simply an investigation. It was a desperate attempt to find a daughter and sister. For investigators, it was a race against uncertainty. Snow can hide things, but it can also reveal them. Footprints can become evidence. Tracks can establish direction. And areas that have been disturbed can show where someone may have traveled. Search teams examined the area around the crash, but Maura was not found, and no confirmed discovery established where she had gone after leaving the vehicle. This is an important distinction. The fact that someone was not found in a particular search area does not automatically tell investigators what happened to them. It only tells investigators that the search did not produce the answer they needed, and in Maura's case, the answer continued to remain out of reach. As investigators reconstructed February 9th, a series of questions emerged. Why did Maura leave the University of Massachusetts Amherst? Why was she traveling to New Hampshire? Where exactly was she planning to go? What happened immediately before the crash? What happened after the crash? Did she remain near Route 112? Did she leave the area? Did someone encounter her? Or was there another explanation? The official record does not provide a confirmed answer to these questions, and this is where a responsible telling of the story has to be careful. Over the years, countless theories have been proposed. Some suggest Maura entered the woods. Others suggest she may have received a ride. Others propose that she voluntarily disappeared. Some theories go much further. But a theory is not the same thing as evidence, and there has never been a confirmed finding that establishes one of these explanations as the truth. The disappearance eventually became part of the FBI's VICAP missing person system. Today, the FBI maintains an official missing person page for Maura Murray. The case remains listed as a missing person case from Haverhill, New Hampshire, dated February 9, 2004. The FBI's page provides Maura's physical description and photographs, including an age-progressed image released in February 2024. That age progression serves a simple purpose. Maura was 21 when she disappeared. If she were alive today, she would look very different from the young woman in photographs taken around 2003 and 2004. Investigators therefore continue to provide updated imagery that could potentially help someone recognize her. It is a reminder that, despite the passage of time, the case has not simply become history. It remains an open search for a missing person. Days became weeks, weeks became months, months became years, and years became decades. For most people, time moves forward. Technology changes, buildings change, people move, children grow into adults. But for the family of a missing person, time can feel different. There is no confirmed ending, no grave to visit, no final answer, no certainty. The disappearance of Maura Murray became one of those cases that continued to generate public interest long after the original search. But public fascination can also create a problem. When a case remains unsolved for years, speculation can begin to overshadow evidence. Names are suggested, stories are repeated. Rumors become mixed with documented facts, and eventually it can become difficult for someone encountering the case for the first time to know which details are actually confirmed. That is why the documented record matters. So let's step away from speculation. Let's focus only on what is firmly documented. Maura Murray was 21 years old in February 2004. She was a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. She had previously attended the United States Military Academy at West Point. She was an avid runner and enjoyed hiking in the White Mountains. On February 9, 2004, she left the University of Massachusetts Amherst. The FBI states that she had not shared her planned trip to New Hampshire with others. Earlier that day, she appeared on surveillance footage at an ATM. Later that evening, at approximately 7:30 p.m., her black Saturn traveled off Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, and became stuck. The roads were snow-covered. When police arrived, Maura was not at the scene. She has not been seen or heard from since. Those are the foundations of the case. Everything beyond those established facts must be treated with caution. Perhaps the most haunting part of the story is the small window between the crash and the arrival of police. Somewhere inside that gap is the answer to the first major question. Where did Maura go? But the answer has never been confirmed. The car remained behind. Maura did not. That means the investigation had to begin from the point where the physical evidence ended. The road could be examined. The vehicle could be examined. The surrounding area could be searched. But Maura herself was gone. And without a confirmed sighting after the crash, investigators had no verified trail leading directly to her. This is one reason the case has remained so difficult. The last known location is known. The next known location is not. And there is no confirmed location between the two. True crime stories often ask, "What do you think happened?" But in an unsolved case, that question can become dangerous if it is presented as fact. The Maura Murray case has generated many theories over the years. Some have received serious public attention. But no publicly established theory has solved the disappearance. There is no confirmed evidence establishing that Maura was murdered. There is no confirmed evidence establishing that she died accidentally. There is no confirmed evidence establishing that she intentionally disappeared. There is no confirmed evidence establishing exactly who, if anyone, encountered her after the crash, and that distinction is crucial. Because the mystery is not that investigators have chosen not to tell the public what happened. The mystery is that the evidence has never produced a definitive answer. Over the years, investigators and search teams have continued looking for answers. The disappearance has received attention from state and federal law enforcement. The FBI still maintains an active missing person profile for Maura. And in 2024, the FBI released an age-progressed image showing what Maura might look like at 41 years old. That update is significant because it shows how investigators attempt to keep an old case recognizable in the present. Someone who was 21 in 2004 would be in her 40s today. A photograph from college may not be enough for someone to recognize her now. So the investigation adapts. The face changes. Technology changes. But the central question remains the same. Where is Maura Murray? There is another side to this story that should never be forgotten. The investigation is not simply about a mysterious road. It is not about internet theories. It is not about a collection of clues for people to debate. It is about a person. Maura Murray was someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's friend. She had a future. She had plans. She had interests. She was studying nursing. She ran. She hiked. She lived a life that existed before February 9, 2004. Then, suddenly, that life became a missing person case. And for the people who loved her, the passage of time has not created the closure that normally comes with knowing what happened to someone. Instead, there is an unanswered question. Why has the Maura Murray case remained so compelling for so long? Part of the answer is the setting. A young woman, a snowy rural road, an abandoned car, and an absence that begins almost immediately. But there is something deeper. The case contains a devastatingly simple mystery. We know where Maura's car was. We know she was not inside it when police arrived. We know she has not been found. But we do not know what happened between those points. That gap has remained open for more than 20 years. And whenever a case contains an unanswered gap, people naturally try to fill it. But the truth does not come from the most interesting theory. It comes from evidence. And the evidence has not yet provided a confirmed resolution. Imagine standing on Route 112 today. The road is still there. The mountains are still there. The winter landscape still looks much like the landscape Maura would have seen. But the years have changed everything else. A young woman who disappeared in 2004 would now be in her 40s. People who were young when Maura disappeared have grown older. Investigators who worked the earliest stages of the case have moved through their careers. Technology that did not exist in the same form in 2004 is now part of modern investigations. And yet one of the most important pieces of information remains unchanged. Maura Murray has never been found. The FBI continues to ask anyone with information to contact law enforcement. Every missing person case eventually reaches the same question. What happened? In Maura's case, that question has survived for more than 2 decades. Was the answer somewhere along Route 112? Was it somewhere beyond the immediate crash scene? Was there information that investigators never received? Or is the truth still hidden in a place nobody has discovered? We cannot responsibly answer those questions without evidence. And that is the difficult reality of this case. There is no confirmed ending to tell, only the documented beginning, and a disappearance that remains unresolved. On February 9, 2004, Maura Murray's car left Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. The road was covered in snow, the car became stuck, and when police arrived, Maura was gone. She was 21 years old. She was a nursing student. She was a runner. She loved the outdoors. And somewhere between that final confirmed chapter of her life and the present day lies an answer that has never been found. The FBI still lists Maura Murray as missing. Her age-progressed image shows what she might look like today, and her case remains open to information that could finally explain what happened. For more than 20 years, one question has remained. Where is Maura Murray? Maybe someone knows something they have never reported. Maybe someone remembers something they once considered unimportant. Maybe somewhere there is a piece of information that could finally connect the beginning of this story to its missing ending. Until that answer is found, Maura's story remains unfinished. Not because she has been forgotten, but because there is still no confirmed explanation for where she went. She vanished in the snow, and the search for Maura Murray continues. If you have information about Maura Murray, the FBI asks that you contact your local FBI office or the nearest American embassy or consulate. And if this case made you stop and think, remember, a missing person is not a mystery character. She is a person whose family is still waiting for answers. This is the silent evidence. Every case deserves an answer.